We are live.
You got everyone here? We still have 2 minutes. Okay, oh, phew. Live, but not live.
Are we waiting on Tyler?
You're good to start when we're ready. We're live now. I'm watching.
Oh, okay. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to the April meeting for the PR&G. So thank you, everyone, for joining. Just a call to order is the first step. I think we've got everyone. We've got a quorum, correct?
Say the time.
Oh, time? Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Good morning. It's April 1st at 8:59 a.m. So first day of April. In April?
Not April Fool's.
Not April Fools. That's
We're really
right.
doing this.
We're really here.
Okay, so we'll call this meeting to order. I don't believe we have anyone who's doing remote participation, so we're good to move forward, okay? First topic is to adopt the agenda, so everyone has a copy of the agenda. Make a move to adopt today's agenda.
So moved? Do we still do so moved?
You can say something.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved? Okay, the motion's passed. Okay, the next up is the adoption of the previous minutes. Everyone should have had a copy of that in the attachments from Austin last week. Any feedback on any changes to the minutes? Feedback? Okay. Now I make a move to adopt the meeting minutes from March, PR&G meeting.
So moved.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passed to adopt the meeting minutes. Next up on the agenda is public comment. I don't believe we have anyone, Austin, signed up.
No public, no comment.
No public comment. Okay, moving on. Unfinished business. And the first topic we have is the review of the Master Greenway Plan and the survey questions. I know Jen's been helping us lead through that. So first up, I think, is the Chapter 6.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hold on, I'll get up close to the microphone in just a second. So Chapter 6 is a really, really short one in the current master plan. It is literally just a matrix summary of the projects that were included in the previous chapters and discussions. The most important part, and this is kind of stuff that we would leave very much to a vendor, so we're really not going to probably dive into this much at all today, other than just to note it, is that this chapter includes what I think early in the discussion we were sort of mentioning as triggering events, but that kind of sounds sort of threatening. So they've rephrased it much more kindly as general implementation actions and funding opportunities. And so I think that'll be, an important inclusion at the end, but there's probably not much for us to fiddle with at this time. So unless anybody has any comments that they'd like us to consider for submitting to the vendor on these things, I don't know that it needs a lot of discussion. Trying to think if I had any specific comments when I was looking over this. You got something, Deb? No. Okay. So yeah, I mean, I think the things that they cite under general implementation actions are, our funding opportunities. So, when do we get money to do a project is obviously a key trigger to whether we can do something. Changes in subdivision ordinances is one of the things they mention here. Staff capacity is mentioned here, and landowner outreach. I think something else that would come into here is sort of meshes with funding opportunities, but also developments. So not just the subdivision ordinance, but when we implement that subdivision ordinance and, people come before us and stuff like that, to get a subdivision approved, then we can execute as part of those projects, either with a fee in lieu or have the developer do it, which is why these plans are important, is so that we know to ask them those things, so the quilt gets made eventually piece by piece. So that's the only thing I would sort of add to that thought process there. And then, of course, there's a matrix for funding opportunities which relate to specific grants and stuff. As grants tend to come and go and whatever, that's sort of not an evergreen part of this document.
So Jim, was this matrix on the funding opportunities, is that just a kind of proposed, does this have any tie back to anything we've received funding on?
Well, so the Part F grant is what we are using for the Village Hall Park. And the NC Water Resources Development Grant, I think we're using for something, but I'm not exactly sure which one that applies to.
So these are grants that we've received, these are not just.
Well, Part F we did,
Okay.
but that's what I'm saying, this is not a particularly evergreen part of the document, and so
It's
I don't
just
know that we
samples.
would include this
Okay,
in the
thank
future. I think we would just mention, grants.
Types. Okay.
Yeah,
It's fine if they include a few grants that have existed for many years, look like they're going to keep going. Grants change all the time. There's new ones, they retire, there's some that just aren't done again. So this is really just going to be a set of examples, if they include it again in the next one.
yeah, I was gonna say, if they're a very cyclical, very reliable grant, otherwise just grant opportunities. So the only reason I'm going over it right now is just to familiarize everybody with, to take this opportunity to say, hey, take a look at this page, so that when we get a document back from the vendor months from now, we just have had an opportunity to take a look at what was included in the old one. And then, of course, it just gives you sort of a guide to how they created the matrix for the projects and how they were measuring like priority, which of course gets back to those triggering conditions. So unless anybody has any discussion on that, I will move on to the survey questions. Yeah, what's up, Deb?
What is natural surface even, is it mulch?
Or just raw dirt that washes away? I don't know.
I think we've also included the crushed concrete as part of a natural surface trail because it's permeable.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. That, the crushed stone is we include
Is
that.
the natural surface
Yes,
trail?
we include that in the natural surface.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've seen in some cases where, where you don't have low-lying areas or things, but there's natural areas of trails where we might not do anything, just given that, the clay sometimes in and of itself can lend itself in the right areas to just being a natural, part of the trail anyway. So it doesn't even always need to be mulched, or it doesn't always need to be, crushed stone. That there are areas, I'm sure, of different paths that we might have.
The deer keep walking on it,
It compacts, yeah.
Well, I think there are parts of Tullamore, when you and I walked it, I mean, I kind of feel like I remember, it was kind of a damp day, and I remember there were some areas that were very just, was just clay while we were out there, so. All right, so any other comments, questions, chapter 6? All right. So moving on to the survey questions that were attached at the agenda, the only change that I made, it seemed to most people that the additions that I had made to the survey based on things that I had pulled from comments over the course of, 5 meetings, nobody seemed to have any specific additions or major objections to anything that was in there, such that they wanted to note or modify. So the only thing that I did change based on last meeting, from the one on the document that I had created that's specific to PR&G, is that on the use of trails, I added the golf carts. I'm not expecting anybody to check that as a preferred one, but based on, the council's interest in the fact that there were some dedicated golf cart paths originally planned for some of the subdivisions, I added that as one of the options, as opposed to giving it its own question. But my concern still stands is that just because, and I get why, those trails were designated at the time as potential golf cart paths to link the golf cart or the golf communities, is that now Innisbrook is no longer the same relationship with Firethorn that it used to be, and so I'm wondering if some of that need is even obsolete. And I would be interested in sort of consolidating that and maybe getting rid of it if it's obsolete. Yeah.
Quick question. The version that we have in the packet, is that the most up-to-date? Has there been any changes since?
Unless anybody has any changes, the one I emailed you in preparation for this agenda that was attached is
Perfect.
all I've got right now. So I haven't made any changes to that unless anybody has any adjustments to it. If we don't have any adjustments to it, then I would be ready to send that to council for part of a request.
Yeah, at the end of this discussion, if we have nothing else to say on the master plan or the survey, I would ask y'all to basically make a motion to
Put it to bed?
kind of. We're going to put it down now. To recommend the survey changes to council.
Okay.
Something simple like that. Just officially close out that business.
Okay. Does anybody have any changes? Okay.
Anyone
Then-
have any questions regarding the survey process coming up?
Austin, could you just review, I know talking to Christina last time, it's coming up, I guess the plan is later this year for the survey, but time-wise, that's not been set yet, right? Is that still under discussion?
It's still very tentative right now. We won't enter a contract with a vendor until after July 1st, till the new fiscal year starts. We would enter that contract sometime in July or August at the earliest. The vendor will take the survey. Once council elects it in its final form, they'll take it, they'll review it and make sure there's no leading questions, that everything, it seems methodologically sound, and they will send it back to us. Council will give a final thumbs up, and then we'll move into distribution. I'm thinking it'll probably be open 2 months, probably open somewhere around September. And then I would expect a final report and a presentation from Central Line at the very end of the year, probably in December, maybe January if things get pushed. It just really depends.
Government moves
Just one question I have, Jen.
Yeah.
In regards to the question that you adjusted to add the golf carts, does that question per se break out other motorized vehicles like e-bikes or things like that?
I can pull it up, by the way. Do you want me to pull it
I
up?
was going to say,
Yeah,
I
yeah, if
don't
you
remember
could.
whether I added e-bikes or not as well.
Because I think it would be kind of weird to
I think I
ask the
did.
question just about
Well,
that and
it's
not
not-
other kind
it's-
of.
Yeah, it's not a question that's specific to the golf carts. It was, what do you want, what would you like to see the trails designed for? What use would you like to see the trails designed for?
And that's what I was wondering, are some of the other choices, some of those other
Did I
type of
throw the
motorized
e-bikes in?
things?
As of now, e-bikes are not allowed on village trails.
Correct,
They're
yeah.
specifically prohibited under the
Right.
current regulations.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to go through these list of questions, or how do you guys want to do this? Because
I think it was just really that one, because we've gone over them before, so if just that one has changed, I
is this
just
the one right
wanted
here,
to.
Jen? You got golf carts, you got motorized
Yes, I
bikes,
did add the
e-bikes.
motorized bikes.
Okay.
Look at me.
Okay.
Yes.
That's what I wanted to do, just to kind of, yeah.
No, then that's a good question, and apparently I did think of it, so yay me. Yeah, so based on our previous discussion, the golf cart question was very separate from the e-bike discussion, and yes, and if people were like, yes, that's what I want to do on our trails, then obviously we need to change our ordinance and look into that. I'm not expecting a real groundswell of support for that,
Yeah.
but based on the discussion, it seemed prudent to at least add it as an option. So,
Questions, thoughts, concerns?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes,
So, sorry,
go ahead.
so would you allow like golf carts and like the preserve trails and stuff? Because it's like really like windy and there's not enough room.
Right now, they are not allowed.
Yeah, but I'm saying like eventually for the survey, do you mean like you're going to like accommodate all these trails for the golf carts if people choose them?
No. So if we had a whole bunch of people select what would we, that we would like golf carts on the trails, we would then take that as a potential mandate to develop golf cart specific trails
Got it.
in areas where we deem it to be useful and safe. So not all trails would become golf cart accessible. It would only be places where it makes sense to be able to drive a golf cart from one place to another. And we would make sure that then those are wide enough and stable enough to traverse safely in said vehicle. Whereas, for example, the preserve trails, as you note, are windy and they're pretty narrow. It would not be safe to operate a golf cart there, which is one reason that it's prohibited. In addition to the fact that it's dangerous then to the pedestrians and non-motorized bike riders, to have somebody whipping around a tight corner on that. Right, so if this, and maybe that's something we'll need to think about with the vendor, is that if, is how this gets worded. I don't know if it's going to be sort of a matrix sort of ranked choice kind of thing, like where people are like strongly in favor of this item, not so much of this, or if it's just a checklist of check all that you'd like. But in any event, we would then apply common sense and say, okay, if people want equestrian trails, those are not the same as walking trails, necessarily. I mean, they could be, but we'd have to think about like what makes sense to implement in particular places. That answer your question?
Yeah, it did, thanks.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Any other questions?
Just one more question. I think I'm looking at a different version here, but.
That is
that
the,
was originals, correct?
yes, those are the original
But I think
questions.
just, I'm sure it's still in here, about the improvements. I know we talk about safety, lights, all the things like that, police patrols, that's
Yes.
probably still there. But I didn't see something specific to crosswalks. Is that something we also want to add in there? Because if you're selecting safety issues, do you feel like that's something else?
So crosswalks are going to be a different animal. Because we have limited ability to do those on non-Marvin roads. So we only can really put them on our roads.
And most of our roads are within subdivisions,
Yes.
not on the
Okay,
roads
I
that
guess I'm
you
just
tend to
thinking
need.
maybe there's some way of thinking of another aspect of safety, and I know I brought this up a number of times, it's just safe access to enter the greenway, in addition to having lights and all the other things we're considering. So whether I guess you're right, we might open it up and then we can't control it, but it might also then be, this is a priority we need to bring back to either the HOAs or somebody to take on because folks are feeling unsafe about that aspect, right?
Absolutely, and I think that the reason I'm not sure, like I said, couldn't even remember if I put e-bikes on here, so I'm not exactly sure what my thought process was at all stages of this, but what is in my mind right now is that while crosswalks are super important, they are so important that I think we're all in favor of pursuing those, and I don't know that there's a need to ask that in a survey. Would you like to see crosswalks?
Okay.
I kind of feel like the answer would sort of be
Well, I
an
guess-
automatic yes in order to make it safe.
No, you're right. It wouldn't be that you wouldn't want a crosswalk. It
Right.
might be like, we ask about, do you use the trails, right? And then you might say, I use the trails, but I don't let my child cross the street to get to the trails. something
And
like
definitely
that, right?
somebody, and we
So,
could put a prompt in that, in an
Why don't
optional
you use
thing,
the
like,
trails?
why don't, if there's a fill in the, your own answer, choose your own adventure part of the survey saying, do you use the trails? If yes, for what? And if no, why not?
Maybe that's.
Maybe, safety comes up and then we can say, oh, hey, that is a priority. But I kind of feel like that's a priority among this board and the council and probably members of the community anyway. So to take up survey,
Yeah, no,
because I was
understand,
reminded
yeah.
that, and I do have a long list of questions here. Probably some of them will get cut. I just wanted to give the long list so it can be a shorter one later.
All right. And again,
But I
we
do
have-
think it's important, and we
also
could
have
throw
other.
it in.
Yeah,
I
you have
mean,
other, so someone can fill in other. I mean,
yeah, there's
right.
definitely other, but we could throw, at this point, there is no cost in throwing in, on that relatively safety-oriented question of, what improvements on the trails. The other thing that comes to mind as well with regard to the crosswalks is that is when I was developing the survey questions, it was very focused on the trails, and the crosswalks are technically in the roadways. They do connect the trails, right? but I don't know where they would fall within the way grants and staff address them. They do connect the trails, so like, we would obviously be discussing them and encouraging them, but they might fall under, like, for example, Davies management with roadways.
That would be, that would be under Public Works, and as
Yeah.
far as how they apply to grants, it's gonna be different with every grant. Some
Yeah,
grants
exactly.
have roadway connection improvements for trails, some don't.
Right. So they are part and parcel of this, but not specifically under our purview, I guess, is sort of it. But we can definitely add that to,
This type of section.
it was question 7.
Question 7.
So they're not in order on my changed one, but yeah, you're right there. So,
This is saved in eScribe here, so I can update it as we go.
yeah, that'd be perfect. Yeah, after the dog pickup stations, just put in,
Give me 1 second, I need to switch documents here. This is one that I have locally saved. Apologies, 1 second.
no, you're good.
I can't type today.
It's cool that we can do this stuff on the fly.
And Jen, I think the only other one is maybe just a clarification, and I realize this is more just ideas. There's a question about what would you like to see in Eford Park, and then.
That question I suggested axing altogether.
Okay.
And the reason for that, not to cut you off,
No,
but
that's
the reason for that is that question is so general, because that's like, what improvements do you want to see in all of Marvin? I mean, at Eford Park and throughout the village. And to me, if we have the space in the survey, I think it would be much more useful to pigeonhole, not pigeonhole, but categorize those options a little bit more precisely. Like, what would you like to see in our parks?
Yeah, that's what I just want to clarify, because I think,
Yes.
and then that's why we've talked about this in the past. You don't want the lead down folks thinking we're putting a pool and pickleball course in Eford, right? So
Exactly.
that was the way this question was worded.
Exactly. And so I broke it out, and that's one of the things that the vendor may say, hey, you've just added a lot of questions, we need to shorten these up. But I literally broke it out into parks, what would you like to see in the parks? What would you like to see on the trails? What would you like to see? And then I actually broke parks out into like low-impact parks with just like, if there's an activity like sand-type activities, like
So
bocce ball or
you've addressed that,
volleyball.
and I apologize, I'm looking at this version here and
No,
not your
no
updates,
problem.
But that was.
But no, since this might be our final talk about these things, it's great to cover. And then in parks, there's also the higher impact question with regard to, do you want to see sports fields, an aquatic center, things that are paved and not technically green space at that point, right? Because now they're built objects. So I tried to break them out
Okay.
in that way.
I did add your crosswalks here
Yep.
in question 7. When looking at the list of questions, or any other changes that you guys want to see?
I'm good.
So should I make a motion, or do we have any more questions? Is that ready? Is that what you're suggesting, Austin? We're at that point?
If you guys are at the point where you think the board's business is done with this topic, then I would ask for a motion. I do have one in your system, just to recommend the list of additional / modified questions as presented.
So moved.
Actually, as amended, because you did change it.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
as amended, yes.
Mhm. So Jen.
I so move what he said.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right,
So
motion
moved.
passes.
Motion passes.
All right.
All right, cool.
Thank you, Jen.
Yeah, 6-month project. Check.
Check. Chapter 6, last chapter, right?
Right, that's
Great
our,
job.
that's
Thank
our
you
last
for-
chapter on that.
Thank you for getting us through all that.
I'll confer with you after the meeting, just to make sure I have everything to give to council.
Yeah, perfect. And so we will not be going over the master plan. So my assumption here is that we're shooting off these survey questions to council. We have a long roadmap for getting the survey results back. And there is no point really in dealing with revamping the master plan until we have those questions back to give us the guidance that we seek. So, yeah, that's it.
Great, thank you for.
So you guys will not see this on your agenda again.
Yeah, for quite a while. Oh, I know, so brokenhearted. We'll find something else.
All right, moving on. Next item on unfinished business is the discussion of the memorial bench for Mike Cognac in the future park. And we have Tyler up for that. I know there was a good discussion in last month's meeting. So
Yeah, so you guys have talked about this a little bit. With Village Hall Park coming here soon, construction is starting this summer, hopefully. There's going to be opportunities for the PR&G board to have the landscaping portion of the project is going to come down to this level, and then those recommendations and the design and stuff like that for plantings, landscaping, kind of what the natural area will look like. We'll get big recommendations from you guys. Part of that in the design would be a proposed memorial for Mike Cognac. If y'all had recommendations for benches, plaques, something like that. I know that's kind of been in the talks recently. That's something that we could take a recommendation on to go into make that a part of landscaping in y'all's purview. So I think y'all had talked more about a bench last week. I know I got a really good example from Deb on what a memorial bench looks like that she's been a part of. I don't know, do you want to talk on that, Deb, on that?
I didn't get the vendor yet. I emailed them to ask who they bought it from, but it's the town I grew up in, so we bought benches for my grandparents and put the plaques on them, and basically it was through the town because they were replacing all the old benches in the different parks, so you could buy a memorial bench. So it's their way of doing updates and not
Getting some funding and updating. Is your microphone on?
Say all that again. I'm joking.
But I had an email out to see where they purchased the benches.
Right.
Because I'm not sure what the material is, but it's very durable. It's not a wood bench.
Yeah.
So, and it was nice coloring, and so it would last. It wouldn't deteriorate. It wouldn't need maintenance. So I could, if anyone wants to see a picture of the ones. But they're trying to replace all the benches to be uniform throughout the town. So they did look nice.
Yeah.
Well, and I think certainly that is one thing that we're going to want to keep in mind, is it's not a huge park, so, the design influence that you have in one area kind of needs to be in concert with whatever else you have. We were just at a council level discussing, the street light, any of the lighting, the lamp posts and how they would compare,
Needs
even
to
as
be
it ties into, here,
Right.
on the Village Hall site and so forth. So I think, as we go through that process of what we're going to look at, then we'll talk about how you have specific dedicated benches to a particular person or something like that.
Yeah, so I was pretty much just throwing this on here to kind of have y'all start thinking about design, location, what part, like if it's going to be Village Hall Park, if Village Hall Park, where at, what are you looking for, a bench, plaque, stuff like that. That's basically if anybody has any discussion on that right now, if that's something y'all want to, sit on for a while. Pretty much anything. Probably, what month is it now? It's April. End of the summer, August, we would kind of need to know, like, that's probably when we'll start bringing back, like, what's the landscaping going to be looking like here, and we'll start putting that in front of you guys, like, what are we saying, what's the design for you guys to make recommendations. So if y'all want to discuss today, think about it, whatever y'all want to do.
Well, I think, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, just, if you have a bench, you have a little plaque on it like this big, right? And I did not know this, God nor the story, so I'm thinking most of us probably don't. So you might need a little bit more info.
Right, I think we definitely want to put more, and Mike, and John, you've got some thoughts too, right, on that. We want to actually acknowledge what Mike did, not just
I mean, there's a
his name,
story, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I think so, and part of that, when you're dedicating a bench, it might just be in memory of or something like that.
Yeah.
And, I think we were thinking more just kind of a plaque, kind of just, at least a paragraph that just says, for his dedication to, the design and implementation of the Marvin Loop, because that's kind of, what's helped us to
Yeah.
get to where we are today. So, maybe that's just a standalone pole with like a metal, thing on it or something like that. So I don't know that it needs to per se be a bench, but again, the other thing to keep in mind is I think there's still discussion and consideration of a separate memorial area that's dedicated to the veterans and things like
Yes,
that.
that's a whole nother discussion, though.
But again, some of the things you want designs of things to be kind of, consistent with one another to some degree. But, I almost think like one of those, when you see the markings for historic things on the sides of the road, that's kind of more the vision that I had, which might be, like an iron, thing that just has a statement on it.
The plaque that we have on the front of the building is bronze. That's very good. That's a very good material to use for
Very.
this. You can have a freestanding plinth with that on top of it. Basically, whatever feedback you all give us, that staff will use that to get quotes and formal proposals. So try to give a little bit of direction as to really where you want to go.
Well, and something that just popped into my head, other than a bench, if you want to put something in a park, why not a tree? A tree that's going to get big, not a crepe myrtle tree, a native tree, a useful oak tree, something like that, that we could get a good-sized
With the
tree.
plaque of
And
that.
with,
With the-
yeah,
yeah,
and
with
that's the dedication, because hopefully it lives.
Yes.
And,
Not we
That would be a poor signal if it
we'll
didn't.
just have to add new ones every
Yes.
couple of years.
You can do a plaque under a tree, whether it's
I'm just something
freestanding
that-
or plinth under a tree,
Yeah.
however you
That
want to
could
do it.
look really nice, and you could throw a bench under there if you wanted to, but you get my point.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good idea. Yeah, I think everybody's in agreement that
Yeah.
it needs to be something large enough to contain some good information.
Exactly.
I have seen some benches that have that where there's a solid center on the back, and then there's a plaque. It's not very comfortable to lean on, but I have seen it. So, I mean, if, I'm not necessarily wedded to I like the idea of a bench, especially if there's something like that to read, you're sitting, whatever. An area to sit and contemplate is very nice, but I think at minimum, it sounds like we're definitely talking about a plaque on something, whether that's its own freestanding plinth. I like the idea of that being under a tree, maybe with a bench, but at that point, we're starting to now get in an entire ensemble.
Yeah, why don't, before the next meeting, each of you do your own individual Google searches of, dedications and things like that, because I'm sure you plug it into Google and 50 will pop up. Each of us bring a couple of your favorite ones, and then we could kind of just bang it out from there and give staff some more direction at the next meeting.
Also think about wording. What would you want to see on the plaque? Obviously, Mayor Cognac was way before my time here. I can pull something together from old minutes, but for those of y'all that were here that know him, knew him
I'll
personally.
put something together, a draft of the wording, and then we can discuss that too.
Cool.
Great. So just to John too, so I understand the process too, as a PR&G, we will come up with the ideas, and we would still need to make recommendation to council then, is that correct, for this idea? But
Correct.
it sounds like from last week's meeting, or months, everybody is in favor of continuing this, and this will just be the priority around the timing of Heritage Park, correct?
And in the end, at the next meeting, we might choose 3 that we like, that we send to council, and let them pick the
Yeah,
one of the 3 or something like
But the
that.
idea is we're still working along a time frame to align with this June, August design. I think it's good so we don't lose sight of
Yeah.
getting it in place.
Yes, through the summer, this is something that would need to roll, so this would.
Great. And I think that, at least I'm hearing, the priority, of course, is around Mike, as it should be, but we also talked about the honor path, and that's some more considerations too. That might be something in the future that we have a path to let individual residents, invest in a plaque to recognize somebody too, but that's gonna be bricks or something along some designs. And maybe as part of our design this summer, we also look about how the pathway pavers could be done, and that's just another outside of recognizing Mike.
Yeah, I think in last month's meeting, I was, as I was talking, I was realizing we had a couple different tiers
Yes.
of recognition. One was Mike, and his was sort of the more elaborate. And then there was a second tier of honoring other Village Hall-related
people, which would sort of then be on Village Hall's dime, or the village's dime, and then a sort of more, community-funded honoring whoever, you want to pay to honor. So we'll have to decide how many of those tiers do we go down? Do we want to do, like what Deb's community is doing, where people sponsor, memorial stuff, and what kind of staff resources that takes, and how feasible that is. But yeah, I definitely think that, for the Mike one, getting on it, and so that it's part of Village Hall Park design, and I definitely think that should be in Village Hall Park as opposed to, say, Eford or somewhere else.
And I think some of these things are longer-term projects. I think that's something more that we'd like to kind of tie in, maybe with the dedication or something like that.
Do we need the memorial forest? I'm not joking. I mean, planting a tree for people, I mean, it goes a long way.
Plaque at the bottom, like with the
Seriously?
species and
Yeah.
the honoree.
This is a Shumard oak for so-and-so, whatever.
Folks do that, and the park, you think in the park would be the right place, or? I mean,
Well, wherever, I'll plant a tree anywhere. But between Trees Union and Habitat Builders, we spend a lot of time planting trees, so we're pretty good at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know lots of people that can help with that. But that, you could make it an event on top of that. That brings out people, and you could actually plant the trees, dedicate the thing. I mean, that's a pretty good day. You know?
That's a good idea.
I mean, well, you were there.
Yes, I was. Yes, got dirty and everything. So we've got we're all in agreement on the plaque for sure. And so what I was going to suggest is, like John suggested, is that we got to, do our little research, come up with some ideas of what we'd like to see. I am certain that in the course of looking that up, we're going to see options that might fit that lower tier. So we
Trees, paths, and other things.
trees, paths, pavers, I'm sure there's a plethora of things out there. And so I'm sure people will come back with.
I just like a breathing option instead of a static option.
No.
Great. Okay, Tyler, thank you for that update, and John's good recommendation. We'll come back next month with different ideas, and then we'll keep kind of the focus of the timing of the Heritage Park plans to get the plaque in place. So next item up is the golf cart ordinance. So we talked a bit about that, but Tyler's been working on.
I was about to say, you guys kind of had a
God, did we
good
steal
conversation.
your thunder?
That's okay. I won't, but you got, I mean, that was essentially what the discussion was, is, my computer's geeking out right now, and I'm trying to pull it back up. But like on the ordinance, nice. So there's a lot of stuff about permitted roads that you can use golf carts on. There's mile per hour restrictions. There's just some stuff on here that needs adjusting or needs, I don't know what I'm trying to say. There's room for recommendations. Like you were saying, you put it on the survey if you wanted it to go, if this is something we thought we would move forward with on the next master plan. If this is something that the people did want, this would need some amending, probably.
So the attachments that were here is what our current ordinance is?
Yes.
This is not proposed language, this is.
No.
This is current language.
Yeah, and one thing, when this came about, because I kind of remember, I think it was 2015 or so, but there was discussion, about really golf carts are utilized within many of our subdivisions, especially like Firethorn or some of those, that naturally would lend to that. But, the village felt that they needed to have a policy in place. So essentially, they created this golf cart ordinance, and really, it was mainly designed to allow for the use of golf carts on Village of Marvin maintained roads. There were limitations within this ordinance. For example, it could only be in subdivisions that have speed limits of 25 miles per hour or less, so if it's 35 miles an hour, you can't have it because you don't want the disparity in terms of speed with cars and things like that. So what you see here is the ordinance as it stands today. And, this was really kind of our first pass as it. important things to remember. It doesn't mean like your 12-year-old kids can then go, it has to be under the ordinance, it has to be under licensed drivers. You have to register with the village to be able to do so. The neighborhood itself has to kind of, approve for the use of it and things like that. So that's what kind of all of these current things, talk and say about. Now, certainly, over 9 years, does it make sense that, there may be some things that need to be tweaked or adjusted in there? And I think that's really, what we're kind of looking for as it kind of comes back to the conversation that we had the other day, which was more some of the paths or connections between neighborhoods that were kind of designed with an intent to be able to accommodate golf carts. I'm not aware of many other than just the one or two that we spoke of that have been spoken about in the past, which is pretty much because they're adjacent to a golf cart neighborhood like Firethorn or something like that, But really Innisbrook and the one next to it right there, those are the only ones that I'm really aware of where that question really came up in the past, other than just being able to utilize them within their internal subdivisions.
In Innisbrook, you have to cross the road, right? I mean, there's no underground path.
Well, and that was always, that was one of the biggest, we went down the road both on PR&G and council at the time of looking at that. But you run into, when you're talking, think of how complicated it is just to get a crosswalk on a DOT road, right? You start talking about a golf cart, which is a non-licensed, vehicle, then it becomes a whole different other thing. And that's why, even at like Ballantyne, you'll see people build bridges or tunnels before they actually have crosswalks for golf carts sometimes, unless you're in a neighborhood or a community that's really designed for that. And some of our roads like Marvin Road or some of those are far more complicated in terms of the speeds and things like that, where you would you'd have to have like a golf cart refuge in the middle or, things like that. So that's why costs and things like that, I think at that time, and working with DOT kind of dissuaded that from occurring, and that's likely to be the situation going forward, because at least at this point, there's not an intent, I believe, of Marvin taking some of those primary roads that you would be crossing or anything like that.
To clarify for the record, what is being asked of the board? As the ordinance is currently written, golf carts are only allowed in internal subdivisions. They can't cross Marvin Road, Marvin School Road, any of these major thoroughfares. They're only allowed in subdivisions. So
Certain subdivisions,
the subdivisions which they're in, yes.
25 miles per hour or less.
Which is all Marvin subdivisions. All Marvin subdivisions should be 25 miles an hour or less. Is that correct, Davey?
To my knowledge, that's correct.
That doesn't keep them from going fast.
But are we asking the board to review the ordinance to make amendments? I just want to make sure we're clear on the record. What's the ask for the board?
Well, I think this really just came up for people to better understand, because I don't think when we had that initial conversation about the connectors, there was really an understanding of this board that there was a golf cart ordinance per se. So I think it's good that it was brought here. Here it is. We've laid it out now. Take a look over it, see if there's any recommendations one way or the other that you think need to be made. And Tyler, I don't know if there's any that, from a staff standpoint, that you think in looking at other, neighboring towns or something we're out of line with. The other thing I think was the enforcement of it, so that was the other component I think that we wanted to discuss. And I know staff has been following up with Union County. There was some question initially on what, and not just golf carts, but unauthorized motorized vehicles, whatsoever, including the e-bikes, but just what level of enforcement the sheriffs could do. And I believe that we have gotten some clarity on that since that time. So I don't think that component is as forefront as what we thought. But in the last month, we've gotten some clarification that law enforcement does feel comfortable that we spoke to the county attorney for the sheriff's office, and they feel comfortable that they can enforce them with the way that the ordinances are now.
Yeah, so there are no amendments planned at this time for any of the ordinances regarding motor vehicles on trails. The sheriff's office is confident they can enforce it. We already have penalties, so that's where we stand on that.
The only thing that came to my mind, and I don't know, it would take a little bit of comparison, but based on the fact that we are prohibiting motorized vehicles on trails, but permitting golf carts on roads with
Only
certain conditions.
Only subdivision roads.
Well, right, only but with certain conditions. So we need to make sure the two are consistent as to, this doesn't mention trails at all.
So this golf cart is a motorized vehicle.
Right, it is, I know, but this doesn't mention trails at all, so if it were to get amended, and I don't know if this is important enough to go through that whole process, but, this specifically pertains to public street roads or highways, and we might want to throw a sentence in there that this is not permitting them on trails other than potentially trails designate, or,
I think.
off-street, because
I don't know that we put it in.
golf cart stuff, like.
I don't know that we can put it in two different places, though, because we do have that already within.
No, to make them consistent is that if we do not allow motorized vehicles on trails,
Yeah.
to make some sort of reference to the other statute so that it's very clear that this is pertaining only to roadways and not the off-street, and that this is not permitting the off-street use of golf carts in residential areas. Like, if you live in Firethorn,
But that's kind of, I'm sorry, isn't that what it kind of says here, though? It says this is the streets that it's approved for, right? So then that means if it's not here.
I'm just concerned that in a subdivision where you're allowed to have golf carts, if they also have trails that are not golf cart friendly,
They're gonna go on them.
then they are permitted to go on trails.
But it's not their trail, right? I mean, it's.
If there is a subdivision that has both, you've got sort of a conflict, is, hey, you're allowed to have golf carts in this subdivision.
I'll bring that.
I just want to make sure that we're consistent. I'm not saying we're
Yeah.
not consistent. It's just having on the one hand, yes, we have subdivisions that have golf carts and they can have them on the roads. And obviously, if you have a golf course, you have off-road use of golf carts.
Yeah.
Those are not our trails. But I want to make sure that we're consistent, because last time we were discussing it from the other side of our trails, it's not allowed. Even if your community is golf cart permitted, we still don't allow you to have them on the trails, potentially.
Yeah, I'll bring that up probably with Hunter, because he's really in charge of the flow of the ordinances, and
it's
I
obviously a
understand what you're
very
saying.
limited constellation of properties where that's relevant, is Firethorn and whatever was immediately around it, and
Yeah.
whatever. I just want to make sure we're consistent with the two, since it's been brought up now, from kind of both angles. So, yeah.
So you're asking, Austin, this is where more awareness and no changes to date to the ordinance, right, Tyler? I think there was some little wording on speed limits you were looking at, but that was it, right, on, yeah.
Yeah, and I was pretty much just looking to know if this is something y'all wanted to consider, but it sounds like it does with the survey and stuff, like if this was something we wanted. Let me cut my mic on. If this was something, for the new master plan, if this was something we wanted to kind of amend this ordinance if needed, push it to be added to the master plan if we wanted to go that route of golf course specific roads, trails, stuff like that. So pretty much, I mean, yeah, it seems like it, with the survey and all that, we can just let that pan out, and see what that looks like.
Yeah, I mean, my recommendation would just be to review this for consistency, or have Hunter review this for consistency with our, no motorized stuff on the trails, make sure that they're not only consistent and maybe reference each other just for clarity. I don't know that that's worth an amendment if they're largely, if we're sure that there aren't any neighborhoods where they might conflict or be confusing. There was one inconsistency on speed limit, just the lawyer in me didn't love the way it was drafted, but that's pretty nitpicky, and there's a typo.
Yeah, I think it might be what you're seeing is that the authority to regulate where the speed limit is 35
Yes.
miles per hour or less, and then further down, our ordinance further refines that. So I think at first, it's just relying on the authority to regulate that comes from the state. So theirs is 35, but we further down limit ours to roads that are 25.
The way
That's
it's
correct.
worded in here, it sounds like we are only allowed to regulate roads where the speed limit is 35 miles per hour or less, and Marvin Road, I believe, is 45, which would take it out of the jurisdiction for us to regulate.
Correct.
But then we specifically excluded it. So we don't have the right to regulate it, so we can't exclude it as a legal loophole. But that was my conflict on there. So I would, if we were to get to a point where I mean, I think it's clear what we're trying to get at, but if we were to amend this, I would try to clean up that language.
Well, I think we can't clean up the first part of it, which is the 35 and under.
Well,
Because that's state
We'd have to go back to, if that's a direct quote of the statute, or if that's a paraphrase of the statute. If it's a paraphrase of the original statute, then we can
Yeah.
see if that wording could be clearer. Because that would, the way it's worded right now, it excludes our ability to exclude anything that's over 35 miles per hour. Obviously, we don't want golf carts on roads that are even faster than that, because it's even more dangerous. So, I mean, I think in a common sense interpretation, it's obvious what we're trying to do here. Like I said, I'm not sure that merits an amendment. It's been working. It's fine. I think people are probably pretty clear. But if we got to the point of an amendment, I would want to look at cleaning that language up.
We'll ask Hunter just to review for consistency's sake.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right. Anything else on this topic? Thank you, Austin, for helping us pull it together on the next. All right, that's it for unfinished business. Then we'll move on to, we don't have any new business, correct? So it looks like reports and updates. Tyler, you've got a number of events coming up in the next month or two.
Sure
We
seems
got our
like that.
T-shirts.
Yeah.
We'll be wearing them multiple times this month, right?
Exactly. So, first Saturday, April 12th, Easter egg hunt, 10 a.m., 0 to 3-year-olds. 10:45, 4 to 6-year-old, my numbers are all jacked up in my head. 4 to 6-year-olds are from 10 at 10:45, and then 7 years and older are at 11:30. And then for anyone that'll benefit from a slower pace, quiet or less people, Easter egg hunt, we will have a sensory-friendly one at 1 p.m. We'll have volunteers on site if anybody would need assistance while searching for eggs and whatnot. From 10 o'clock in the morning until 12 o'clock till 12 o'clock, we will have our pet and zoo, and we will have the Metro Fun Bus with us at the park. So if you're looking for those amenities, come between those hours. Come to the park, have fun, hunt for eggs, get some candy, play with animals. It'll be a great Saturday. That's Saturday, April 12th.
Oh, that's the day it's going to be nice and sunny, right?
That's you heard it there first.
Yes, it will.
And I'm gonna tell you, it's rain or shine. If it's pouring rain, come out there. It doesn't matter. So, following that,
Oh, Tyler, and you have volunteers for that through the volunteer group, or who's helping you with the setup and?
yes. So the Young Men's Service League, that's very prominent here and does a lot for us in this village. That we've got about 20 of those guys and moms going to be out there to help out anybody who will need assistance while hunting for eggs. Also,
Yeah, who's hiding?
no, I think me and Davey are hiding the eggs, and by hiding the eggs, we mean slinging them into the lawn area. And
They're too big to go in the fertilizer spreader.
yeah, I mean, there's going to be a walking slinging. We got about, I think I got about 8,000 eggs sitting around.
You
So
stuffing them too?
yeah,
You stuff eggs, right?
gonna need a launcher.
Yeah, launcher.
But
Now I'm in.
yeah. So 2 weeks after that, April 26th, Marvin Day. I put a T-shirt and a piece of paper in front of all you guys that are going to be in attendance. Christina did not throw one in front of you. I gave you a shirt, but there's no paper there.
They're by evening.
Yeah.
Fireworks?
They So I pretty much, on this folded up paper has pretty much everybody's duties and times I'd like for everybody to be at the park if you're available. It's going to start at 4 p.m. I think I got most everybody getting there at 2 or 2:30. I'll give you a little more in-depth schedule how it's going to go. So the event starts at 4. From 4 to 5, we're having a disc golf clinic over at Hole 8 on the disc golf course. Seth from Union County Parks and Rec will be here to run that for us. From 4:30 to 5:30 in the stage area lawn, from 4:30 to 5, our Marvin Ridge High School band is going to come play for about 30 minutes. They're going to play a couple songs. From 5 to about 5:45 on the stage, we're going to have a magic show by Mr. Marvel. And then starting at 6, the Stella Rising Band will be playing. And the whole time all that's going on, we're going to have face paint, hair tinsel, huge kids fun zone that's full of bounce houses and games and stuff like that. We're going to have animal exhibits inside the barn. We're going to have some vendors and stuff to talk to with some informational stuff like habitat builders and people like that inside the barn. We're going to have vendors on site selling stuff. We're going to have food trucks. Just a nice evening, family fun. It's going to be jam-packed. We're going to have parking on site, so y'all can drive to the park. When the park gets full, we're going to have overflow parking over here at Marvin Elementary School. We have a shuttle that'll run you back and forth from that.
So for staff and/or volunteers, are we still supposed to park down by the maintenance shed?
Ideally, yes.
Okay, as long as there's spots still there.
Yes. We're going to try to fill that up first. For any staff and volunteers come down to the public works shed, and we'll park all the way up through there. Gosh, I was about to give a little. Oh, and we'll have crafts inside the barn too. Councilman Barisic is lucky enough he gets to kind of be in charge of the crafts, and we're doing little pot planters. We've got a bunch of little pots, and we're going to have topsoil and flower seeds, and you can plant your own flower, and it's those pots that you can go home and dig a hole and stick the whole pot in the ground, and hopefully grow some flowers for yourself. So come by the barn, do that. Does anybody have any specific questions about your role that day or the event in general? Perfect.
You have done such a great job. Everyone's crystal clear.
Everyone's great.
Just, I see
There's the
you,
craft guy.
I see you mentioned on mine working with another volunteer for inside the barn, soil and flower. That's right up Tracy's alley, so.
That's the volunteer I was hoping for.
So Tracy's been
Yeah,
volunteering.
Tracy, I didn't want a name dropper in case she wasn't coming, but I'm glad.
Todd, what time does it wrap up then?
It'll wrap up at 9.
Okay.
That's what time the concert will end, and then we'll shut everything down. The kids' fun zone will run till it gets just too dark to go, and then we'll shut it down. And that'll probably be by then 8:15, probably 8:30. When it'll be dark, April 26th, probably about 8:15. And we have lights and stuff there. We'll have sheriffs helping people get out. We got light towers, so everybody will be able to see to get in their car. Hopefully we can really fill the park up this year with parking. We're not doing fireworks, so we're actually saving a lot of the park. We used to have to barricade off a huge radius for the fallout there, but with no fireworks, we should be able to fit a lot of people. So yeah, that's Marvin Day this year. We got if you come on staff, if you're there volunteering, we'll get some food ordered. I'm going to try to pre-order some Marco's pizza because they make great pizza, and they'll be there on site too. So, and usually they'll deliver to the park. So I think I got Jen catching the pizza guy, but I'll probably try to have that pre-ordered. And we'll also have we got a taco truck coming from Wing It, Los Tacos, Katrina's. Really excited about them. And yeah, that's pretty much the rundown there.
Cool.
Any?
Then after that, we all just fall down.
Yeah, everybody just go home,
No,
take a
as I said,
nap.
then we've got the 5K after that.
Yep, so May 31st, 5K. It's going to start over here at the elementary school, like we've done in the past. We'll show up. It'll be at 9 o'clock, and the kids' fun run will be at 10. I've sent out, waiting to hear back. There will be a slight road closure for a short amount of time right there. It's like a 600-foot stretch from the entrance of the elementary school up to Groves Edge Lane. Yeah, that's what that's called. And we just shut that down just for the kind of the launch of the 5K because people need to get out onto the road for everybody to start. We had a humongous turnout last year, hoping to beat that. I think we ended up with 232 runners last year, which was, I believe, our largest one yet. So shooting for about 250 this year. And
Do you have volunteers from that same group as well, or do you also need?
that one's not, so we kind of contract that one through a company called Yari Dash. They come and they bring the finish line and the starter, and they do medals and all that. It's not as labor intensive. There's really not a huge need. Come run it, walk it if y'all want to.
Do they do a water station for this 5K?
Yeah, so we do there's a little roundabout. We could use a volunteer for that. I think Polomi's dad did. I think I drove Polomi's dad and dropped him off there last year.
He's running this year,
Oh my
so
gosh,
he can't
okay.
do it.
All right, so I do need one. I need one good person.
Publix sets up a tent with food and drinks too.
Yeah, we do
Parking
usually,
lot.
yeah.
Yeah, is there a vendor health fair thing again with it?
Probably.
That sounds like a touchy, that was a touchy question.
No, there probably will be. I
said, planning on that one's still a little further out, I mean.
yeah, but we're rolling on it. The part of me that the health fair is a big hit before the event for about 30 minutes.
Yep.
And it's great, and there's a lot of interaction, and we had a big turnout. We had like 15 businesses out there last year.
And then
But when
nothing.
that race is over, people are leaving. It's starting to get hot. People are leaving.
Coming to get their donuts.
That's true. Because everybody was.
That's why you run.
That's true. You earn them. You got to earn those cars. And then,
I will say, I grabbed donuts immediately after I finished the race last year.
oh yeah, you got to.
Well, if we had the donuts there, maybe we could get everybody to linger longer. Should have the donuts on site, and then they'll maybe stay.
But we probably will do
Eat donuts, health fair.
health fair. And
I
then
can't
deliver it.
imagine a better combo,
Blood sugar, but your blood sugar test, yeah,
right?
good.
But I'll probably reach back out to the same folks because we had it really fit the scheme last year. Like we had like Yoga 6 and ISI, and I mean it was very it was really cool. It was really athletic out there. 3Fs was out there, yeah. So that one's coming. If you're an interested vendor, I'll be reaching back out to you. If you're new, reach out to me. We'll get you lined up for it, and be looking out for that registration. It'll come as a link. You have to register and sign up for the 5K. There's a link you'll see online on our website, on our posts and stuff like that once we get it posted. After the 5K, I don't know if you guys recall, last summer we did a Lake Day. We took a group of kids down to Cane Creek Park, and it was a huge hit, and they had a great time. So I was talking to our friends down there at Union County Parks and Rec, and we're going to set up about 6 or 8 of those days through the summer. Probably try to split it up June, July, and August. Do a couple Fridays a month, and then maybe a day through the week, and do paddleboarding, kayaking, archery. And they have a nature hike program that we can do out, and they have great trails through there. So those dates will get posted. Those will be individual registration links you'll get. Sign the kids up. There is a limited space on those. We can only take so many for each program. So
Are those kind of good earmarked for like Marvin Day, not Marvin Day, but Marvin residents to come to that, or is that open to anybody?
it's open to anyone. Last year, the one time we did it, funny enough, it was like 23 kids, and each of them was a Marvin resident. So I think it's great, and they love doing it down there at Cane Creek Park. Like Union County Parks and Rec loves us coming because everyone that came didn't know. They were like, we've never been here. This is like a hidden gem, and it is a hidden gem. I mean, that's a great park down there.
It's cute.
It's great.
there a fee for that too? I can't remember, or was it just only, wasn't it pretty nominal?
I feel like
for
it was
a-
free we took the Marvin residents for free. If someone else wanted to sign up, I think it was $5 or $10.
Yeah,
That's
it
a
was
real-
ridiculously
that's-
low.
Yeah, I mean, I really think
Program again
because
this
it's low,
I
they
think,
treat
I
it.
think the village paid for them, and it was only like
We did.
$250 a person or something.
Oh,
like
yeah,
that.
it was because they let us treat it like a field trip, and it was like $40 to rent, to like have it put on for all day, and we were like, okay. So we just pay for it and let the kids go for free, so.
That's excellent. And to get that many more days, I mean, I know a lot of families will appreciate that.
Yeah, they did tell me that most of our days will be on Fridays. So we'll do most of them on Fridays because that's kind of their day, because they do pop-up programs down there Monday through Thursday. But
But Union County Parks and Rec handles the staffing of it?
yeah, so I contacted their outdoor rec coordinator, Seth, and him and Holly. They'll put on the programs for me. They do it every day, so they're really great. They're nice. They let me chip in. They let me have some fun. Me and Paul and me went down there last year. It's fun. So, yeah, that's about as far out as we are right this second. So.
And then between now and then, do we have any of like the stargazing events or any of those set up now that weather's starting to warm up?
No.
But it's also
no.
still unpredictably cloudy, so.
It's yeah. We still don't know what's going to happen. We haven't set another one of those up yet.
Okay.
Working on some other stuff. Something I'll put on y'all's radar too. That's kind of like in the works, but it's going to happen hopefully in May. From May to June is a little scavenger hunt that we'll do, where out on our trails you'll find objects, and you take a picture and send it in to us, and it'll throw your name into a pot, and there will be a giveaway. You'll get a little Marvin prize for
that's cool.
picking some stuff up like that. But that's still in the early days. That one's yet to come, but you will see some stuff about that late spring, early summer.
That's an awesome promotional idea,
In the
just to get
parks
people
or-
aware of the parks and trails.
Get everybody moving, get everybody out there.
Did we just do a scavenger hunt at the park, and how did that
I
go?
believe Habitat did.
Oh, that was Habitat. How'd
And I didn't know
how'd that
about
go?
that. I swear I'm not
Christina?
stealing your idea.
So, that was our first, we're called, North Carolina Wildlife Federation is calling it family engagement, because you can bring your kids, but you have to stay with them. It's not like bring your kids and drop them off and leave them with me on the trail. That's we had 25 people, 12 kids, from like infants to probably a 10-year-old, but most of them were in the 5 to 6 range, I think, and 13 parents or family members, whatever. And we started out at the pollinator garden and walked around the trail toward the playground. That was the right way to do that, not hit the playground early, but that was just luck. But we did have someone from North Carolina Wildlife Federation leading this. Her name is Mary Burrs, and she is she's their VP of, oh gosh, sorry, Mary, I can't remember her title now. But this is what she is doing now with them, these family engagement kind of projects. We'll do another one hopefully toward the fall-ish. Anyway, it turned out really, really well. 25 was plenty of people too. I was kind of pushing the rope from behind, and and then they started, scattering, and yeah, it was hard we could have used more people to help herd.
And the scavengering was around different nature objects?
So
or
basically,
ideas?
we played nature bingo.
Okay.
So they had a little sheet that had pictures on it, because some of them were not reading yet, but most of them could read pretty well. Especially when they got to the signs around the little lake, they were all reading that. We can't go swimming, we can't go fishing.
No fun of any kind.
No, I mean, that was sort of the tone. Yeah, that was sort of the tone. But anyway, I think you could do something like that quarterly, the way nature changes. You could have some really cool stuff going on. So anyway, that's all we did. And they all got bingo, and we were good. Yeah.
So you think that this group could help sponsor that on a quarterly basis, or tie into work that Tyler's doing, or what would you think? I mean,
However you want to do it, but what we're hoping with North Carolina Wildlife Federation, with this group, is that they kind of hold our hand for the first parts of these, and then we can do them at our whim later. Because really, you could do a pop-up scavenger hunt. If you see that the weather is going to be okay on the weekend, you could, say, oh, we're just going to meet down there and bring your kiddos, and you got a piece of paper, and we're going to look for a pine cone. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. There's always something to find. It was really interesting to see what was starting to pop up. We saw turtles and frogs and all kinds of, we didn't see a snake. That was too bad. Too bad. We didn't see the owl either. We saw an owl the other day, big old barred owl during the day, just, watching us. Anyway, but I also have a couple of invasive plant removal things that have been given to me. Of 5-year-olds who want to do an invasive plant removal, they didn't call me, their person called me, their handler, who wants to do an invasive plant removal service project at the park. So we'll do that with 5-year-olds. I'm not sure how that's going to go. And we've got another, I think it's a construction company that's going to have a day at the park for some reason.
Okay.
And we're going to pull some more invasive plants. So that's Friday, the 11th.
It's amazing that we can still have invasive plants at the park.
Oh.
I know.
So when we
It's
did
putting
the,
the invasive in
when we
invasive,
did
but,
the
I
walkthrough,
know.
I'm like, clearly I haven't gotten down this far. I
Right.
mean, oh, man, yeah, I need to stop going to the same spot and just
Right.
keep moving on, get some bigger stuff. But between, since we're talking about the summer, we'll have a moth night coming up in Waxhaw. I think it's in June. It's on our calendar. But so if you miss the first one, that'll be a fun time. And a little earlier. Yeah.
So Christina, with your invasive piece, that's just limited to the plants. It doesn't bleed into anything like the Davies team is doing as well, right? I mean, as
So
far as.
actually, they're doing some of the bigger ones.
Okay, because I was gonna
Yeah.
say, if you've got this group, how does it tie? I mean,
Yeah,
can
so
can they help? in
We've
some space?
we've labeled a bunch of the larger trees and stuff, and so park staff is starting to take some of those down.
Okay.
But, we, with the handsaw the other day, took a couple of Bradford pears that were probably this big, took 5 down with a handsaw.
Wow.
But you just got to make sure that you paint it with herbicide to really make it die. Otherwise, it'll just pop back up. And sorry, but we have a conflict on the 12th. We're doing Earth Day in Waxhaw, so we'll be down there. The weather's going to be great.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Says so right now.
Okay. And Tyler, so you've got a lot planned already, and then I know you and I spoke briefly about this, another opportunity about the forest bathing, which is, you probably describe it best, but it's an opportunity to really encourage folks to come out to either greenways and parks and to do a little bit more, I guess, facilitated engagement with nature, and that's
Sure.
something we'd like to see.
Yeah, that's a really cool thing, getting very grounded with nature. It's really cool. Trying to find somebody right now, kind of looking at what that would look like for us and who would do it in location, probably do it out of the park, something like that. So that's something, doing a little research on right now.
Cool. Yeah. Tyler, anything else then on events? And you've covered a lot. And then trail updates, Greenway report? Okay. Nothing crazy on the trails, Greenway? We did bring, I know you and I spoke just briefly about some signage, and I know we talked about, I guess my question to you was around, when you start the Greenway here at the park, there's no sign, but you said in the future plans for the Heritage Park, there'll be a more of official sign that says.
Yeah, there will be a
Greenway.
trailhead over
Trailhead,
here.
that's it, that's the term.
Yeah.
But the question I had was on the Tullamore Trailhead. Have we ever considered, and I know we talked about last month was about signage on hours and dusk,
Yeah.
but actually knowing that there's a trailhead at Tullamore, there's not one today, I don't believe. It's more just kind of there's a dog.
There's a poop station.
There's a poop station there, but there's nothing that says.
That's
There's nothing that says,
Welcome to
Marvin Greenway or any of like that kind of signage. So has that ever been considered for our other Greenway entrances?
Was that discussed back in the day?
Well, sort of for the
I
purposes
know
of
it was. The Tullamore Trail itself, we also had like a dedicated parking lot there. And I believe there was a sign at one point that at least designated. So I don't know if it's still there, if it's behind weeds that got grown up by the parking lot that we kind of
I think the
abandoned.
parking lot disappeared, I think maybe the signage did too, but with our wayfinding and branding and blah, blah, blah. So when we had
Yeah.
that discussion last month, and I was saying, just for fair notice, I would love to see, like, if we're, if we had, I mean, I don't think we should have
Well,
operating hours, but, I mean, if we were gonna put something on a sign, it would be like, Trailhead, Marvin, information.
Well, we
right,
should
vehicles,
also do it
tiny.
responsibly so that people aren't wandering around looking for it
the trailhead.
to other
yeah.
people's properties
Right.
and things
There's a
like that
sign
too,
out there
so.
that goes, but you don't know. if
Yeah,
it's- And
well,
also,
let's take a look at that and see what, if anything, may still be there at the Tullamore Trail, and if not, we probably do need to put something.
yeah, I think it's also just good to promote our greenways, right? If we're going to advertise something, then it's it's designated as.
And a
ours.
lot of times, these things are things when people are looking for service projects and stuff like that.
Oh, it's a great scout project.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep, and I think likewise the one at, behind Amber Meadows too, it just kind of states that you can't, I think there's some more, what you can't do, but it doesn't say that it's our greenway, and that is considered our greenway too, correct, off of Tom Short, the Amber Meadows?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good point.
All right, I think that's it on that Public Works, Davey?
Yeah, so it has been a busy month in the Public Works Department, spring coming on and all of the maintenance duties that comes along with that. But above and beyond that, we've had some many projects we've been working on. We actually have been, Christina mentioned the invasive plant removal project she's been working on. We worked with her on a couple of items in this past month. Staff was trying to eradicate the Bradford pear trees in Marvin Eford Park. We took on the task of the larger trees. I think Christina's group.
The chainsaw trees.
Yeah, we were handling the trees large enough that needed chainsaws. And so I don't have the exact number of trees we removed, but I do believe it was well over a dozen or more. It was, and it's something that we'll continue to work on throughout the summer with the smaller trees and all of that, working in our normal duties. We also worked with Christina at the flower garden for an arbor, and I've got some photos of the arbor that the Public Works Department constructed, and
It's already been constructed.
it's already been constructed. We still have one
This
small
though,
piece to finish up.
is awesome. I saw that the other day. Yeah,
That's fast,
that's holding up that limb.
love that.
So there's this limb that goes down like a live oak tree. It's not, right? It goes
It is.
down and hits the ground like a live oak, and they've shorted up, right?
Yeah, so that was next on the list. Staff just completed bracing that limb, and if anyone's been to the park and walked the trails, this is an oak tree with a unique limb that kind of runs horizontal to the ground, but it was so unique that we built our trail underneath it, so you'd walk right underneath it, and it's been in my opinion, it's been kind of a highlight of the park for several years, but it has had some damage over the years, and we recently noticed that it had started failing and breaking and about midways down the limb itself. So we contacted Keith O'Haron, the Union County Urban Forester, had him come out and look at it. I didn't want to just cut the limb right off. I wanted to see if there was any way we could try to preserve it because of its uniqueness. And he gave us some ideas, and the photos that you've got there, we completed that construction last week. And what it basically does is, in the failure point, we are bracing each side of it, but we're bracing it to the point where we're not impeding the trail itself. So you can still walk through the trail and under the limb, and we hope to, by bracing it and the way we constructed it, you can see right around the limbs, we've kind of closed the area in to avoid any pinch points. I'm afraid over the years, some children may have used that limb to walk on, and it was something to play on, and that's a good thing. I climbed trees when I was a kid, but in saying that, we wanted to make this as safe and secure as possible while still trying to extend the life of this tree limb.
And I assume we'll keep an eye on if the tree starts growing kind of beyond the brace. I mean, it'll be a few years. I think we're good.
Yeah, we're keeping an eye on it now. The tip of the limb is budding, so we know that there was still some life in it. Again, Keith looked at it and believes there's about 15% of good wood left in that limb. And so we felt like no more money than it was going to cost to build these braces.
It looks
We'll
great.
try
So
it.
good.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
nice.
So thank you. I'll pass that along to staff, but we thought that was a neat project to take on, and it only took a short time.
And I didn't mean to get you off of the arbor. The arbor is, the idea for the arbor was that there's no real obvious entrance into the pollinator garden. I mean, people used to walk down the dry creek bed in there. Well, I've got them to stop doing that because I don't cut the plants back, so now they can't get through there. So we put that there to sort of say, here's where the entrance is. And we also have a coral honeysuckle that I planted last year, and I'm gonna move it a little bit closer. It's pretty close, but I wanna move it closer, and it'll take that and probably start heading off toward the path, toward the path around the thing. So, I mean, they'll get 20 feet long. So, and it's very happy, it seems like. So it'll cover that arbor nicely soon, and it'll bloom a lot too. That'll look nice. It looks really good.
Well, we appreciate all your help and your guidance in that project, so, yeah. Another project that's ongoing now is the walkway that council approved last year that will connect the upper parking lot, which is the first parking lot when you pull into the park on the left. We're gonna connect it to the walking path at the playground area. And, you know, we had ADA spaces, or at least one ADA space in the upper parking lot. This walkway will help guide or get ADA visitors to the playground area or the barn area. So it's under construction. I think they're actually pouring it as we speak. So we anticipate it being open in just a matter of about a week. Once it dries and all that, staff still has a little bit of work to do around just edging it and getting it ready to open up. But we will advertise this, the opening of that, I imagine through our website and social media.
You just gotta let me know.
Okay. Right now, we have the area quarantined off with construction, fencing, and signage. We don't want any visitors around that, just for safety purposes. But once it's ready to open up, we'll take all of that down, and we'll make sure everyone is aware of it. That's going on. That's all of the updates in Marvin Eford Park. That's happened over the last month. We also have exciting news about the Marvin Trail, Marvin Loop Trail. Council had also approved previously to resurface just the asphalt portion of the trail. Now, this is the trail that extends along Marvin School Road and then turns down Joe Kerr Road. That, from what we understand, that original trail's been there 15 or more years. There's been a little bit of maintenance on it over the years, crack sealing and things like that, but it was to a point where there were cracks were everywhere, and some cracks were extended past what you would want to crack seal. So council agreed, made a decision that we would re-asphalt, resurface that entire trail. It's about a mile and a half estimated, and that work is scheduled to begin this coming Monday, April 7th. And there will be areas where the walking path will be closed temporarily while they do this construction work. So if anyone is using that trail, that we will have signage up for the work zones. So if you will avoid those work zones, that would be great. I don't think the entire trail will be closed at one time. It'll be done in sections, but we anticipate this project it may take, a couple of weeks, and it'll be completely finished.
Austin, can you publish something to that effect, just to at least? Okay.
Yeah,
It'll be in time for his 5K, but not his 5K, but for the 5K, right?
yeah, absolutely. It'll be.
And they do run on that, right? That's part of the.
Yeah, so it'll be a much safer and smoother surface moving forward. We're excited about this project, and again, we expect it to be done in just a matter of a couple of weeks if weather allows.
Awesome,
Outside of that, we have upcoming projects. Again, it's already been discussed. We'll be prepping the park for the Easter egg hunt and Marvin Day events. We will be addressing the planting beds here at Village Hall over the next month, as well as the roundabout planting beds. So we have to just, it's that time of the year, do some maintenance to those to get them ready, prep for the summer growing season. So my report.
Any questions? Thank you. Next, moving on to council report, John.
All right. We had our regular village council meeting, of course, and the work session. Couple of items that came out of that, and part of it was also that original council meeting, our regular council meeting was in conjunction, just like we have a joint meeting with council. This was planning board's opportunity to meet with the council. So a couple of these ideas were discussed as part of that joint meeting. And essentially, the two items, one of our planning board members brought up whether or not it might make sense to put more streetlights up Marvin Road. Specifically, you know, that has been an area of high impact from accidents and things like that. Joe Carr Road, you know, of course, you know, it seems Joe Carr Road, there were all those cars that you always see go off into the woods, you know, of what's going to be the new developed community down there. But then you also see all the time cars being run into actually fire thorns, kind of metal gates and brick stanchions. And, you know, eventually there will be some hope, you know, that's one of the areas targeted potentially for a roundabout or some other traffic calming mechanism someday. But this was brought up. I know, you know, there were some differing views on council about, you know, just adding streetlights in general. I brought up the fact that, you know, we have brought up within the PR&G a lot of discussions about light and, you know, trying to not create light pollution certainly in Marvin, and we want to be sensitive to that. But we do also have to look out for, you know, safety purposes at specific intersections and things. I think by and large, the conversation really came around to, yes, there may be need, but, you know, for specific areas or specific intersections where, you know, lighting may need to be either enhanced or introduced. But that in general, we as a community just don't want to be one of those that feels we need to just flood lights down any of our main corridors, you know. And I think that was a general consensus. But, you know, I think especially because we have had those conversations about lights and light pollution, and, you know, there are costs involved as well, you know. You contract typically with Union Power because they handle our power around here. I know even within my neighborhood, you know, our HOA at the main intersections might have just one street light, you know, that, you know, our neighborhood actually pays for. Generally, they're like $30 to $40 per month. But you start adding street lights all over the place, and certainly that adds up too, in addition to some of the concerns that we have around wildlife and plant growth and all the other things that can be affected by it too. So I did want to make sure you folks were aware of that. You know, it's something that we can talk about maybe at another meeting, you know, just in general, if you get a chance. You could go back and you could listen to that portion of the conversation back on YouTube or something like that if you want to.
During the planning board's regular meeting and joint meeting with council, so that was on March 18th.
Yeah, so it would be on March 18th in the early part of the meeting. And then another question.
That was primarily just for that one strip though, right, the discussion?
It was initially brought up about that one strip, but when you think about that one strip, it's not the only place that there might be areas of concern, and you have to start to think about the economies of thing when if you do it there, then are you doing it, you want to maintain some level of consistency one way or the other. And like I said, I think there was a general recognition that yes, when there are areas that, you know, create specific safety concerns and traffic concerns and things where it might be of use, that those are areas that we might look to do it. But, you know, that's something that they wanted me to kind of bring back to you guys and have discussion about, you know, in relation to the other light pollution conversations we've been having. The other item was specifically around the trails and whether or not we have or may get to a point where we would consider like those blue light emergency stations and things like that. I believe in the pack, there's some attachments because one of the things that council said, well, we don't even know how much these things cost, and things like that. And, I can certainly see if you're a municipality that's having issues with certain situations, and certainly we also never want to ignore things so anything becomes an issue. But, I guess some of the questions that if we were ever to consider implementing something like that is, how do you target the right place for it? Typically, you see those things kind of pop up in areas where a municipality or somebody has issues. And, knock on wood, and we've been blessed to date that, that there really haven't been much of any issues of those type of situations on the trails that we have. But it's certainly something to keep in mind. We've just at least did our due diligence so far to understand what those costs would be. But again, if you're talking, $3,500 a station, and where do you put one versus where do you put 10? Or, how do you consider that? All things that I think we need to responsibly think about and consider long-term. But again, we've been blessed not to really have situations we have to address specifically in regards to this, but something we want to keep in mind as, things develop and, we continue to implement more trails, connections, things like that, certainly there are, people within the community that do have concerns about safety and things like that.
So
But
just-
any question about either of those things?
Just to clarify, is that this is included in here for our edification on pricing, should we want to pursue this later where that comes up, right? Like, this is just sort of a fact-finding.
Correct, and it's part of the council report, so there's no specific actions, but it's really me just wanting to make sure, as we've really worked over the last year to try to continue to make sure that there's good communication, between the board and what's going on council, because not all of us can sit down and run through every 2-hour meeting of the planning board, the council, PR&G. I try to do my best, but we're all volunteers, that are, really do this on our own time with other jobs and everything like that. So just trying to make sure that there's an awareness of, different items that are brought up that kind of touch on parks, recreations, trails, things of that nature.
And I think given the concerns that some residents have raised about, security, I definitely think this is an important thing to have done the fact-finding on so that we're prepared. I agree, though, that I think what you were kind of getting at is that we don't necessarily want to go drop a bunch of money and put little, these stations all over the place, just, like, oh, we might need them here. I mean, it would be unfortunate for whoever actually has an incident, before
Usually
we
you
put
would-
one in. But I
yeah.
think we do kind of need to wait to spend that kind of money and put that in a natural environment with the electricity and all of the stuff that, they're solar, but, some of our trails are.
Or
very
there's
heavily
different
covered and
options
there's
for
trees
it, you'll see.
and
yeah.
to know what option to use until we have a clearer idea of where these might be necessary. But if it came up that we have a need for them, this is great to already have sourced out the information.
This is very preliminary research, by the way.
Yeah.
Not a lot of effort, not a lot of time has went into this yet.
And that's what I wanted to clarify, like, we're just in an
It's-
early sort of information
And it was
gathering
more
state.
just, there wasn't data, like you said, there wasn't incidents that were reported, it was more just in kind of being proactive around it. And that's more personal safety, because security is different, there's been different security issues that have been brought up, not personal safety necessarily, but maybe proximity to some trails, right?
Yeah.
For others. Okay. John, I have another question just on the street lighting, as far as, I know that's just, again, exploratory. Is our light ordinance, is it different for like major roads like that versus a subdivision, the whole, I know that, I looked at it, but I don't interpret everything.
Well, major roads like that, so there's ordinances that dictate like within a subdivision, what sort of street lighting, things like that, of that nature. I think what we're talking about here is mainly main road lighting.
Yes, and that would
And
be-
when it comes to that, when you're within state DOT and all of those things, typically what you do is you piggyback off Union County and their power poles. Now, one area that we have done some things with lighting is at the roundabouts, of course, so that's something that we kind of initiated, and I think the state is now kind of pushing more toward that, at least in those areas. But generally, when you're talking about streetlights on main thoroughfares, you're talking about contracting through a particular, Union County, Union Power, and having them coming off, their own poles. Now, if you had it in an area where there's not a pole or something like that, then it becomes, a much more costly thing, and, you have to be the one that pays for the installation of the post and things like that. Or if you get into wanting not just kind of the standard ones, but you want to get into like specialty designs and things like that, which of course drive the prices up as well.
And I guess the reason I was asking is, I think if anyone drives up to Mecklenburg County, as soon as you hit that stretch of Marvin Road, I mean, the light level is beyond,
Well,
I think anything that Marvin would.
that-
so
that-
that's
that
my
was the-
question,
that
like,
was
can
the
you put ours
specific-
down and not look like that if you were to bring the lights in, right, so that.
Yeah, that was actually the specific kind of case that was brought up. And what we don't know is, was that just Mecklenburg County adding more and more of those lights? Was it in response to some of the subdivisions that are nearby or whatever, but what created that? But, I think that was kind of what was brought up, is that here you're coming down and then all of a sudden you're kind of in the black hole, which by and large, is that what we want to be as a community? Do we want to be a street lighted down the whole thing community where street lights are everywhere? Or do we want to remain kind of the off the beaten path, kind of less lighting other than, primary intersections, things of that nature, or, specifically areas that, are cause of concern?
Yeah, I think how you feel about that depends on which direction you're driving on Marvin Road. If you're driving from the well-lit part into our black hole, you may be like, oh my God, I just fell off the map. On the other hand, if you start in the darkness and then you get to that light, you're like, oh my God,
Right.
turn it down. And I think, Christina with the dark sky, I'm totally in agreement. The light pollution around here drives me nuts. We've all talked here about the impacts on wildlife and circadian rhythms and even our own residents.
humans.
If humans have insomnia, like turn your damn landscape lights off. It's just crazy the amount of light. On the other hand, I do recognize, I'm glad that made it into the discussion, because that's obviously something that this board, has covered, is we'd like to keep the light pollution to a minimum for various reasons. So I'm glad that made it into the discussion there. But also, at least personally, I recognize that there are safety considerations. So, at intersections, to have something that lights a sign in addition to the contours of the turn, if it's a well-traveled, intersection, is probably a good thing. And then, I say Christina may disagree, but,
I just wonder how many of those people ran off the curve over there where the horse used to live. How many of those happen at night?
I don't know.
Yeah,
And would a light have helped, or was it more?
I feel like it would.
Was it more, attention or substance related?
Yeah.
So I don't know that a light's the solution, but as far as just trying to navigate at night, on heavily used intersections, something that lights, signs and stuff like that would be acceptable.
Like the sign that says no outlet, those signs?
Not specifically.
No, I think that one.
You want to put a little spotlight on that one?
No outlet.
So, we can be reasonable, I guess.
Okay. John, anything else?
But that's it, if no one else has more questions.
I think on the light topic, and as far as action items, that's come up over, we still have that as an outstanding action
I'm
item.
not giving up.
for
I'm
that.
not doing anything about it, but I'm not giving up.
So that's, so nothing on the village council, then the next is the action items in Austin. We just had
All right.
3 on there. I think one was the light pollution. Oh,
No, that's the existing ones. This is for the new, this is for anything new.
Okay.
So I'm gonna get with Jen, we're gonna get the final documents from today's meeting for the survey, we'll get that. I'll merge your changes into the council's survey, they'll get to see that soon, they'll review and approve, make those changes. John is gonna work on draft text for memorial plaque. You guys are gonna think of, how do you want this plaque to look? Do you want it as a freestanding plaque, on a bench, under a tree? Once we get that feedback from y'all, that's the point where Davey or Tyler will do research on pricing. We're going to talk to Hunter about the golf cart ordinance. He's probably going to say no changes are needed, but we will double check because we've already been talking about that somewhat. And yeah, I think that's about it.
And Christina, were you going to say something about lighting?
Oh, I knew that was on the old,
The existing
the
list.
existing action items, and so that's why, since we had just talked about it. So if that's something else to add to Austin's?
So we'll do that now if we go onto the existing list. So the ongoing action item list, is there any light pollution?
We're just going to keep reminding ourselves that it's on the list.
Okay. You guys have now finished your review of the Greenway Master Plan and survey, so we can check those two off the list.
Right. Well, I do want to stop, so, I mean, we are going to remind, so I think you brought the point, this was 6 months ago, correct, about the impact of light pollution? So was the action to do more education, or what was it? I mean, what else are we doing? Are we looking at,
The
compliance
action was for Christina to provide information for us to put on our website. We can add to the newsletters and the HOAs. We do the newsletter story on turn off the lights, twice a year roughly. We've already done it, I think.
I usually do it right after Christmas, like when you should probably be taking your Christmas lights out before February.
Yeah. So we've already done that, but really what we're waiting on is more information either put on our website or to share with HOAs.
Okay.
So I can put some dark sky stuff, I can send you some pretty straightforward dark sky stuff.
Yeah, the
to
dark
put on
sky
website.
organization,
Yeah.
to be a dark sky community would be
Can you imagine?
amazing.
That would be
but
awesome.
I don't know that we could get there, but we could try.
Just the bleed over from Mecklenburg County would probably keep us out.
Yeah, possibly.
I'm not joking.
I mean, well, and the other place that we could use some is on bus stops. I mean, if we're going to continue to do this time change shenanigans, twice a year, there is a period of time where kids are standing in the absolute dark waiting for the bus. So known bus stops, I would be in favor of a light, and major intersections where
And that one
navigation
could be
could be helped.
That could be on a
But then
timer.
after that,
though.
yeah, exactly,
you know,
yes, the bus stop one should be on a timer, and, then intersections and signage for those major intersections in particular. Like, I mentioned that so that we don't put the light on the, away from the sign.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Other than that, I would love to see.
Or like behind the stuff.
Yeah, I would love to see, just tamp down or put everything on timers.
So yeah, send more information, we'll get it out.
For the website.
Thanks, Austin. So that's it for the open items, right?
Yep, you're on to board member comments.
Anyone have additional comments for today's meeting, or just in general?
I think I said all I had to say.
All right, well, a lot of good discussion, excited to go see the improvements in the park that Davey mentioned, and Tyler's got us all raring for the next month and a half to be together.
And we've got clothes
Yes,
for it. So
we're
that's-
wearing out these event shirts, right? So we'll get 'em.
I love the fact that we're having one shirt for multiple events.
I think that was smart.
It's
Great, thank you for
beautiful.
that.
So you guys do need a motion to adjourn at 10:41.
Okay, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passed. Amendment passed.
Thank you,
Thanks,
guys.
everyone, have a great day.
Good job.
Yes, good job.
It's a lot to think about it.
It is, I know.